Okay, so the next thing that we'll go through is the inline duplicate. I think it's really important to note that the inline duplicate, that pop-up possible duplicate feature, isn't a means to merge two client files that you've identified as being a duplicate. So perhaps you saw Stephanie McLean twice in the search. Going through in the profile and changing anything and using the possible duplicate pop-up isn't going to allow you to merge that duplicate. This pop-up is supposed to help you ensure that no duplicates get added. So if a duplicate is already in the system, so if you see two client profiles already in the system, this isn't going to help you merge them. This is really just to prevent you from adding that person again. So for kind of our main tips for this, we always recommend, before you do anything, clicking on the View field. So that's the first thing you want to look at, is take a look at that household profile. Obviously, there are certain things like name and date of birth that can help you identify that if it's the same person or not, but obviously this view mode has a lot more detail, including a history of the different services that they've accessed. Also important to note what the criteria is of how this is going to pop up. So the inline duplicate feature will pull a potential duplicate if there is a combination of last name and first name, a combination of last name and date of birth, or a combination of first name and date of birth. I know probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now you were getting this possible duplicate pop-up even if there was only one match. And that was a bug in the system when we added a special program called CSFP. It was improperly pulling your duplicate matches. So you shouldn't receive those again. That was an error in the system. The only 3 matches again that you will be getting are first name and last name and date of birth, or first name and date of birth. So if you go through the view and you decide this is the person that you are looking for, you're going to scroll down and you can see right here it allows you to go into that client profile by clicking on Edit. So then once you get there, all you're going to need to do is, if you set your profile to land you on this Services tab, is to record a visit for them. Just keep in mind that there is this old tab open and you're going to want to close that. The reason why that's important is because there's that automatic timeout feature. So if you have multiple tabs open, it could be starting your automatic timeout countdown of 20 minutes on one of your older tabs, which will actually log you out of all of the tabs. Any questions on that, on what you do when you have found the person that you're looking for? Okay, so the next instance is if you decide that it is not the person that you're looking for. So we'll go through that one. Stephanie always gets to be the example on the duplicate. So it pops up. Always, again, you're going to click View just to take a look and do some more confirmation with the client to make sure that it is them. You scroll down, take a look at the details. If you say, no, I know for certain that this is not the person in front of me, you're going to exit out of the tab and you're going to click on Dismiss. When you click Dismiss, it's actually saying to the system, I have confirmed that this is not a duplicate. Please don't pull this as a potential duplicate between these two clients again, and it will not show this match on the client duplicate page. So when you click Dismiss, it is going to give you a pop-up to remind you of that as well. Okay? Any questions about that instance? Okay. And the last one is if you look at it and you're just not sure. So maybe you've clicked on View. Again, you've taken a look at the other profile and you're just really not sure, or you just don't have time to deal with it at the time. That's when you're going to press Ignore. So when you press Ignore, it's not like Dismiss, where it's going to prevent it from being flagged as a duplicate later. It's just going to take the pop-up off the screen for you, and this match will show in the client's duplicate list after the fact. So those are the three main situations.
Stephanie?
Yes.
This is Mike. Are you sure that when you click ignore, it's going to show up in the client duplicates list?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's not been my experience.
Okay, so we're going to go through the client duplicates list, and we have a couple tips of what to do if it doesn't look like something's not showing in the client duplicate list. If that doesn't kind of fit the experience that you have, we'll definitely take a few examples from you, and then we'll take a look at it just to make sure that everything is functioning properly under the hood. But we've done a lot of testing on it, and there's been no reporting on it from other users, but definitely helpful for us to get that information from you. Any other questions about the possible duplicate pop-up? Alrighty. So the next example is if you get a possible duplicate if you are on adding a household member. So we're going to go in, and we're going to see what happens when we attempt to add Stephanie, or Alex Jones, I think was the example, onto Stephanie's profile. Okay, so you can see the same options as before: view, which will allow you to go in and edit this client if you want, ignore or dismiss. The only thing that's different if you try to add someone as a household member is this move button. So the move button is actually going to take them from their old profile here and move just this individual, not all of their household members if there are other people in the household. It will move that one individual into this household by clicking on move. If there are multiple people in the old household and while you're doing intake they say, you know what, Alex is moving in, as is his daughter Sam, you're just going to go and do the same thing with Sam. You would put in her last name and first name and click move for her as well. Any questions about moving clients? Okay. The next thing that we're going to go over is this client duplicates list. So we're found under client and client duplicates. There's apparently not any duplicates in here. I'm going to just do this under the network settings. Okay, so as you can see, and as I'm sure many of you have looked at, this is a kind of retroactive look at any duplicates. The parameters for matching for this duplicate list are a combination of first name and last name and date of birth, first name and date of birth, or address. And you'll see that the system is highlighting what it's pulling the match on. So any matching fields are going to be highlighted for you in yellow. Right now, the configuration is set so that if you are logged in as an agency, which is how everyone on the line except for Carrie would log in, that you're only going to see duplicates that have been created at your agency. So for example, Henry Sage and Henry Sage would only show up if your agency created both of those profiles. That's how our users up to now had wanted that to work, so that agencies did not have the ability to merge duplicates across agencies. In talking with Carrie and learning more about how you're all doing the pilot and how you would like the duplicate situation to be treated, we've actually added in a new feature that's going to go live with the version 2.2 rollout on Monday, which will show a duplicate even if your agency didn't create both of them. So yours will look a little bit more like this, and it could say Agency A and Agency B here, and you will have the ability to merge duplicates cross-agency. That may be why some of you are experiencing seeing individuals in the search and then not seeing them on the client duplicate list, or that when you press ignore, it's not showing on the client duplicate list. That would be happening if someone else originally created that client file. I know this is kind of a strange thing to explain, so please let me know if I'm not doing a great job at making it clear. Carrie, do you think that helps to clarify?
Yeah, for sure. I think that that was probably one of the pieces that was kind of confusing. But so what you said, agencies will now be able to see the duplicate, but as long as they had at least created one of the originals, or just
Nope.
total?
They'll be able. Everyone will be able to see all duplicates in the system.
Okay.
Yes. Is that clear to everyone else? Please let me know if it's not. I know it's a very awkward thing to explain, and I just want to make sure that that makes more sense now.
This is Mike. I appreciate that change. That'll be helpful. I'm wondering if you're thinking about doing any way of a filtering, because that list could be very long, or so we could actually find where our clients are, or I guess we can just search for them with the search function, I guess.
Yeah, this search function is how most, right now, if you're set up as a network, so someone like Carrie, they can see all of the duplicates across everything, and they're just using the search if they know they're looking for someone specific.
So the one thing we need to figure out, you guys, is the notes that have been added. This is one thing that when you merge two household or two individuals together, it will merge the notes that have been taken on that individual. So if we put a note down at the bottom that says, do not use this, this is a duplicate, it's going to merge over into the new ID number and their new profile. So we need to make sure that you go back and you erase that note so that people aren't thinking that it's still a duplicate.
And one thing that will be helpful in that regard that may kind of create a trigger for you is that after a client profile is merged, the next time that merged profile is accessed on intake, it's actually going to be set as a forced review for you. Some of you may have seen that before where it says review required, this client has been merged. So that's going to give you a heads up that it has been merged. So if you see any dated notes, you'll know to be able to go in and change them and be able to identify that, maybe it says don't use this profile, but that the merge has already happened.
Yep, and just being extra special with the people who are going through that, because they have probably had to fill out the paperwork multiple times, and now we're asking them to review their information again. So just being aware of that.
Would this be a good time to ask about duplicates that are legitimate, like shared custody, and how that's going to be handled in the future?
Yeah, I'll chat about that at the end. I have that on the list for one of the last items of discussion.
I have a question that's similar, well, not quite. Example would be that we've got a client entered under a specific address, but then when they visit one of the pantries, they give a different address. So at times I've added notes saying, last known at this address, visited, gave this address, please verify their address next time they come in somewhere, but I know that our pantry isn't able to access the website simultaneously, and we're having to enter the shoppers later. Mm-hmm. And so how do you want that handled? Because sometimes we're getting too many notes added. Does my question make sense?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to think of other, I know this has come up before, and I'm trying to think of how a few others are treating this right now.
Do we change it? Do we leave it? Do we put in a note saying, please verify where this person lives? I mean, I'm getting conflicts from the day a person signs up to the shopping or the sign-in as well, just because I think it's more dishonesty, but that's another story.
Yeah, I think that's something that you can use the messaging system for to communicate with the other agency. I think ultimately if you know that it is the same household and they have a different address, you're going to want to make sure that those two profiles are merged to one, that you put the address that they give you on the visit date, and then you add a note for the next agency and maybe send them a message saying, this is the situation, this client is giving multiple addresses, I've put a note in for you. If they're going to give a different address at every agency, they're going to do that regardless. Maybe they just have multiple forms of ID, whatever the situation is. You just hope that, you know, at least one of those addresses are correct. And I think a lot of it is making sure that the client understands that they're going to get served regardless of what they tell you their address is.
Yeah, and that's just it. That's where we're like, why lie?
Yeah,
there is if you need it.
Yeah, there is a definite fear for a lot of folks that if, you know, they're not in that service area, or if they give an address that's not that close to an agency, that they're going to be turned away. So I think a lot of it is just communication with the client and communication with each other, that when you do identify those situations, you get them merged into one profile as soon as possible, and just let other organizations know what the situation is that's happening.
Okay, because I've had an example of one family listing family members under multiple addresses, but then they'll change the birthday of one family member by like 1 day or 1 month or something. And it's I'm like, which address and birthday do I keep them under?
Yeah, we do intake at a pantry every week, and last week I had a situation where a client came in, and when they gave the name of one of their children, that child came up on 4 separate profiles.
Yeah, I'm coming across those,
So there was a lot of discussion on, do you know other people this child may have lived with before? Do they live there now? Do they permanently live with you? So it's not an exact science, and I know definitely from my own experience that it can be frustrating when it holds up the line of the people behind them, because you don't want to spend 10 minutes trying to say, where does this child live? So sometimes what I do when I'm doing intake is I actually just write down the situation, and I make a note for myself to look at it in the retroactive duplicate check later and try to sort it out then. You want to try to catch everything that you can on intake, because it does save time later, but there are these just crazy situations where there is a child on 4 profiles, and you know, everyone's lips are zipped about where they actually live. And in the situation, the child actually did just kind of filter between aunt, mom, dad, and a grandparent.
Yeah, and that's where I'm trying to figure out where to put them sometimes.
Yeah, it's challenging. We're getting, you know, on our end, we're learning too, and we're implementing features to try to make that easier all the time. So we always love when we, you know, experience those firsthand or can hear about those situations from you, so the technology can adapt. We always say, just if you're serving someone, make sure that they are on the profile that you're serving them on. So when you're on that services page, make sure their name is there and they're checked off, because then the stats are correct. And then, you know, there's always the opportunity to work back and merge duplicates or sort out a complex situation after the fact.
Okay, and sadly, I'm not the one doing the intakes. I'm adding all the data after.
Yeah.
Okay, so the bottom line is to do notes from now on for other agencies to hopefully catch on and try to get this information clarified eventually.
Yeah, the more you can communicate with the client, because remember, this is really new for them too. It's a new system. It's maybe confusing for them of how you know information about where they've previously been. So communicating with them, communicating with each other, using the notes function, being courteous of one another. If you notice someone has a note in there that's out of date, just, you know, maybe taking the alert off the note. Along with the version 2.2 rollout, all those alert notes will be dated now. So it'll be easier for you to say, oh, this is from 4 months ago. Maybe this alert note isn't needed, and just being able to work together as a group to keep those things clean.
Okay.
I wish I had a perfect science answer for you, but I mean, I definitely, both Stephanie and I can sympathize and understand for the challenges of doing that on the front line and doing it retroactively as well.
Okay, so I'll just kind of keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, keep just communicating, using the notes. Try to, if you're adding information in after and you notice there's 2 profiles, just get them merged into one. I have some tips that I'm going to talk about shortly about how when we're helping people merge duplicates, how we determine, is this a duplicate and which household is the winner. So some of that might help too for you when you're doing it. And everyone's always afraid to merge. I even find, and Steph can probably relate, when I'm helping people merge their duplicates, I'm sometimes nervous about doing it. And sometimes with that nervousness, you just don't. You're like, oh, I'll just leave it as 2 for now. But hopefully these tips will kind of make that. And we have a written doc, like all of this is going to be updated in the support materials as well with some of these tips, so you'll have a reference point later.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey guys, can I just add a little tag for making sure that we're explaining what this information is being used for, like right from the very beginning, so that people are feeling comfortable providing accurate information to help us provide better services. And maybe we can do a group think of language that's being used to kind of make sure that people are understanding that this isn't going to be shared with the government or we're not trying to track them or anything like that, because just thinking about maybe some of the fears that clients are experiencing when they're asked to share this kind of information, to set those at rest from the very beginning so that they know what it's being used for and that it's being kept private and anonymous, might help us to get some more accurate information.
Yeah, that's great, Carrie. And let us know if there's anything we can do. We're always trying to kind of create standard verbiage or information sheets to share with everyone. So if there's any way that we can help everyone in that, we're happy to do that.
Can I make one more plug?
Go nuts!
Go nuts! So I've been seeing, and I think it really speaks to what Tammy's been talking about with duplicates that I'm seeing, that one profile has the same name, the first name, last name, and then the address is different, but then the rest of the profile isn't. And then I think it's from people adding historical data without having all of the information. So and doing like a partial profile, and then when somebody comes in and searches for that person, they say, hey, are you, Henry Sage, who lives at this address? They're like, oh no, that's not me. And so they create a new profile for them. So just a plug for it. I know it feels like adding historical data will help, but it just it can lead to some confusion.
That's a really good point, Carrie. I think when you and I were looking through a lot of the duplicates in this client duplicates list, we were seeing a lot of those too. All right. Another thing that I wanted to chat about is what to do if you can't find a duplicate on the list. So I think now that we're opening it up that everyone is going to see the duplicates regardless of where they're created, that probably isn't going to happen very often. Another thing that happens sometimes is that someone accidentally dismisses the duplicate on intake. So if you click here on View Dismissed Client Duplicates, you're actually able to see a list of all the duplicates that were previously dismissed, and there is a search there as well. So definitely always check in that list. Also make sure that the duplicate that you have found does match the criteria, that they're either matching on a combination of first and last and date of birth, or first and date of birth, or their address. If it's, Sandra Smith and Sandy Smith, and their date of birth is even a day off, the duplicate system isn't going to be able to find them. So if it is a matter of sometimes changing one of the client profiles to say Sandy Smith and Sandy Smith, that'll get it to pop up on the duplicate list. Sometimes it's not going to pop up immediately. It may take a few minutes for it to register and process because of the way that everything's being filtered. So back to the list of client duplicates. I'm going to go through a few of my tips on how I help to determine if a household is a duplicate and which household should be the winning household. And then I'm going to let Steph take it away actually going through the advanced merge feature with you. So I always click View because when I get View, I'm going to get a side-by-side comparison of each of the households. The first thing I do is just a quick check for completeness. So I scroll down and I look to see if all the fields are completed. This is, I think, what Carrie was referring to. If there's one household that has all of the details and another household where a majority of things are missing, that's likely someone adding in historical data or perhaps just not getting all of the information or not being able to get all of the information right away. So that helps you determine, whether or not it's a duplicate. And then obviously in terms of that one, you want to take the winning household as the one with the most information. The next thing that I take a look at is the last updated date. I like to know when the last time there was a change to their profile. So if the housing status differs or the address, a change in their profile could be the reason for that. So perhaps they moved, their address got updated in the system. So you always want to see which one was the most recently updated. And with that as well, I like to look down at a visit history to see if they have visits recorded on both households, and if so, where the most recent visits were recorded. Sometimes when I'm helping people merge their duplicates, I'll see, say this client here has the 5 most recent duplicates or visits, and then this client over here maybe has visits from a year before, and that has actually been sitting as a duplicate in the system for a while. So again, that just helps because you want to take the winning profile as the one that has the most up-to-date information. The next thing that I look at is date of birth. Sometimes people will switch the month and day by mistake, so that can help determine, it's already been flagged as a duplicate, but it may help give you more clarity as to how it got added as a duplicate. It's just that the date of birth might have been swapped. I also like to take a look at the housing type. A lot of individuals are living with friends and family, or may alternate on being on their own and living with friends and family, or even being homeless. That can also sometimes trigger a duplicate because their situation has changed, and that should help you kind of use the information you know about the situations in clients' life to understand how they maybe got added onto a new household. So perhaps they were living in a private rental. This one was private rental, and it was last updated in June. And now all of a sudden you have them living on someone else's household, and their housing type is with family and friends, for example. So that should help you to kind of work through some of that. And then one of the most obvious ones is looking at the household members and trying to determine, is this the same household based on the fact of, are the people in both households matching? There's obviously a lot of different things to look at. I just find that those are some of the ones that are the most helpful for me. I'm sure that some of you have your own kind of tips, so if anyone has anything they'd like to share on how they determine if a client is a duplicate and which one should be the winner, now would be a really great time to kind of bring that up to the group, and hopefully we can add it to our list as well and be able to share that with others. Any thoughts? Or
this is Mike. I'm wondering if I have one.
Yeah.
This is Mike Schiffer. Birthdays can be confusing because birthdays are sometimes estimated, and sometimes when we estimate them, we use the same birthday for a lot of people, like, oh, they're 30 years old, so January 1st, 1985. So I'm thinking it would be helpful if on date of birth next to it, it could say that it was an estimated date.
Yeah.
Then we would know that it might. So I'm just a suggestion for future consideration.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, Mike. Thank you. Never would have thought of that.
Well, I second that motion. That would be very, very helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Anyone else have any tips they use or any suggestions of what we can do to make this easier for you?
At times when I say I can't read the sign-in information when they're signed in to shop at the pantry because I'm entering the data 4 days later when I come in to volunteer, I end up looking up addresses on either Google Maps to try to make sure it's in there correctly, or I even go to whitepages.com sometimes just to try to make sure, is this the right address or whatever. I don't know if that's good.
No,
sometimes it helps clarify. Sometimes I find out that address doesn't exist. But
that's good information to have for sure.
But then I'm like, okay, so what is the most up-to-date is the problem like I had last week when I was entering 2 people because of them giving different addresses, but then when I looked them up on my pages, they were both showing at the same address.
Yeah, and remember too that as soon as you do merge them, the next person that does intake, there is going to be that forced review. So it's good to train your teams that when there's a forced review because of a merge, be sure to ask for address. Because when you're doing it later, you just might not know which one is the most up to date. And having that triggering that forced review will give them the opportunity to clarify all the details with the client. Any other tips or ideas?
Hey, Emily.
Yeah.
Are we going to go over if you find that, one or two things in the profile aren't tripping it to be pulled up onto the duplicates, how to change that?
Yeah, I said that earlier. You might have missed it. I said if something that you do a search and you know that it's a duplicate and it's not pulling up on the list, to just go into one profile and make sure that there's enough to match the 3 criteria or the 4 criteria for it to pull up.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Any other questions or ideas on this? Okay, I'm going to let Stephanie take it away with the process of merging a duplicate. Okay, so let's go with Henry, and actually let's go with Helen. So Helen Brown, same date of birth. This is one of those examples where the data hasn't been complete. So we know that there's no address here. So like Emily had mentioned that the address is incomplete. So the way that I think about it is if I don't see an address here, you kind of need an address to complete the profile. And if the profile is not complete, there's probably no visit under here. So we're not losing much information here on this page or on this client's profile. So we viewed it. So again, this is blank, education level. So none of this has been filled out. This is the second page, the profile page. So I know that they haven't even been to this page to fill it out. Neither have they been to the income page, things like that. So I know which one to remove. So I'm removing the blank one, and I would click on merge. So it's always going to show you what is the completed profile. What's the completed profile going to look like? In case you're wondering what fields are going to be moved over. In this case, there are no visits being moved over, but if there were, they would tell you how many visits would be affected, meaning how many visits are we going to merge into this profile. So that's one example. I'm going to show you an example of, oh, these are all open. I don't want to be timed out.
The interesting use of the term victim there.
Yeah, there was, funny enough, there was victim, but there's also, the initial one was loser, and we didn't really like that word either. We're actively soliciting feedback for a better word. We've had a lot of internal battles on what the word should be. So definitely let us know if you have one that just doesn't signify something negative about the individuals. Okay, here's one. So Henry Sage and Henry Sage. I open up a new tab, and I'm viewing both of their profiles. We can see that in one profile he's with Rosemary, Gloria, and Sage here. And then the other profile he's by himself. So when we decide which one to merge, he could be living by, so in some situations, another reason why sometimes duplicates are created is because if Henry comes in and says, I live by myself, sometimes users create a new profile because they don't think he belongs in this household, which is not necessarily the case. Like you can move someone out of a household, but in this case there was a duplicate made on it, so it was done. So here's Henry Sage, and we're going to merge. I think it's important, if you go back one page, this is how I always think about this, is that I always say I'm merging this person up into this person, or I'm merging this person down into this person. So you're saying, this is the one I'm not keeping, I'm going to give it to this profile.
So think of the red arrow as the one that you're going to be deleting. I'm merging, therefore I'm not keeping this profile. By clicking on it, you are removing this profile and you are merging their information into the other one that's remaining.
I noticed that you were going to merge into the top profile, and the status of the top profile was inactive. Is that important to note?
It doesn't matter if they're active or inactive. What is important is that they have one of those, so either active or inactive. If you might have noticed, there's an option where if you do not see, it's happened in actually happened this morning in someone who brought up a ticket. If someone did not see a duplicate on their list, it's because one of the clients were set as pending. If this client's profile is not complete, it will not show up on the client's duplicates list.
Since I can't remember, could you explain what inactive means?
Yeah, inactive is a profile of someone who has not visited the food bank within 6 months. So someone where a visit has not been recorded, and a review would have been, a forced review would be in place. So you couldn't record a visit for them until you went through the whole profile and reviewed it.
And yeah, so in practicality, you probably wouldn't choose the inactive profile to be the winner, but I think what Stephanie's trying to say is it won't prevent you from merging it if it is inactive. You just, when you're thinking about having the most up-to-date information, the inactive one they at least haven't been accessed or received food in 6 months, you probably wouldn't pick that one as the winner.
So here's one. Okay. So there are going to be times when you are merging an individual who has family members or household members within their profile. The system is going to ask you what you want to do with them. So I've decided I'm going to remove this Henry Sage. So we'll call this Henry Sage A. This is Henry Sage B that I'm keeping. In this Henry Sage's A, in his household, he also lives with Rosemary, Gloria, and Sage. So the system is asking, what would you like me to do with these 3 individuals? Should all of them be moved into this winner's profile? Or do Rosemary and Gloria and Sage, do they live by themselves? Are they still living together? So there are 3 options here, and you can choose individual options for each member of the household. So by default, the system is going to have move here, saying I'm moving Henry and move everybody who lives with Henry. I want them all moved into this winning household. But you can definitely select this drop-down list. Maybe Henry just moved out. So in the drop-down list, you can say leave an existing household. That means no, they do not live together. Let's leave Rosemary, leave them in their household A, just leave them there. And this means when I'm merging, I'm just merging Henry here with this Henry over here, Henry A and B, and they will stay, Rosemary, Gloria, and Sage will stay in their own household. So as you can see, 0 down here, 0 visits out of 4 will be affected. They will continue to have their visits in their profile. They'll still be one family. It's just Henry that will no longer be with them. Does that make sense?
Is this the advanced merge function?
This is the advanced merge.
I don't remember seeing this. Okay,
yeah.
Will we be getting that? Okay.
Yeah, you should. It should be enabled, but I can double check. This can definitely be enabled in your system.
I don't think I've seen it. Has anybody else seen this before?
Yes, it's been available.
Oh, I haven't come across this one yet.
Yeah, I have not either. This is Chris.
If you're only merging individuals and there aren't household members, you might not be seeing it.
So if Henry was by himself, I'll show you another one. If we'll do Helen. Helen has no household members with her. So this is still the advanced merge. She has no household members. So this is what it would look like for her. There's no need to worry about where other household members would go because she lives by herself.
you, in the next couple of days, want to take some time to take a look at the duplicate merging feature. And if you find an example where you're not seeing the advanced merge functionality and you know that there are multiple household members on the quote-unquote losing household, just let Carrie know and she can provide that information to us.
I just looked and it's there now, so.
Okay, perfect.
So there will be another option. It's not listed here, but there's leave, like I mentioned, leave in the existing. There's move and there's merge. So merge is not here, but merge would be here if Rosemary was already in this household. So maybe there's already a Rosemary here in the existing household. You can merge those two together since she's already there. You wouldn't want to move her in because she already has a profile in there, and then you'd have two Rosemarys. So this system will catch any other possible duplicates within these households that you're merging, so you can do it all as one.
Steph, do you want to go through what you do if you determine that someone isn't a duplicate?
Sure. So if we have gone through, let's say, we'll use the example like you mentioned so you know how old somebody is, and you happen to put just the 1st of January and the year. So Helen Brown here, I've clicked on view. Same age, same name, but she lives in different addresses, at different addresses. If you know for sure, so if there were more factors, so for example, Harold Brown and Angela Brown, if they're different people and you know for sure they are not the same person, you can dismiss this possible duplicate, from your client's list. So when you're dismissing it, you're not deleting these profiles by any means, you're just removing it from this client duplicates list, and we're putting it in the dismissed client duplicate list. So I know these are not the same people. I click dismiss. So it's no longer here on this list. If it was a mistake or if you realize that, okay, maybe they are the same person, you still have access to the dismissed client duplicates list. So if you go through, like for example here, Gloria actually changed her name to Gloria Sage and Charles Smith. Maybe these are the same people. You can undismiss this. By undismissing, you're just putting it back on the client duplicates list to manage it in the same way that you manage all the other duplicates on the client duplicates page. So it would return back to the client duplicates list.
Hey, Stephanie, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When we were going through the training together, you were saying that when you join two profiles together, any fields that were blank on one profile would be filled in by that information from the other profile that you're merging into that. Can you just speak a little bit to that? And like if, for that example that you just gave, it had two different names to start with, if you choose to merge them, would the names switch?
So, yeah, sure. So depending on, we'll use, let's see, Helen's. So we'll use Helen's here. You're clicking on the winning profile that you're choosing. That's the name that's going to be chosen. So the information that is there on that client's profile, her name, date of birth, gender, we're keeping all of this here, regardless of whatever. So if this date of birth was different, we're keeping this. You selected this as the winner. I'm going through to, and there will always be a confirmation, so I'll show you that a little bit after, but this person had no address, but this person does. She has no housing type, this person does. So we will take this. This has, the information is there, and we're going to use this in the winning profile. If you're not sure what's going to be moved over, before you complete your merge, we'll merge Helen Brown. This column on the left will show you what it's going to look like. So we've kept this we've kept the address. We're taking the housing type. It'll show you what's going to be in the winning profile. So if you're not sure what's going to be kept from which profile, this will at least give you a confirmation of what it's going to look like. Does that help clarify everything, Carrie?
Yes. And then if you, at that point, realize that something needs to be updated after you merge it and save it, then you need to go back into the profile and fix it.
You got it.
Got it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Any other questions on that? Okay, I think that takes care of everything that we were hoping to go over with duplicates.